Welcome to segment 3 of Citizens Forum, being filmed on Tuesday, August the 4th. I'd like to thank again the volunteer crew and the Shaw staff that makes this program happen. Our guest in this segment is Chris Corr. We're going to be talking about sewage treatment. Chris is the CEO of a company called Pivotal IRM, and maybe you can just tell us what Pivotal IRM is.
We realized quite a while ago that there's a need with sewage treatment to integrate all of the components. So we formed a structure to do that, both to consult on it and assist clients to get there, and businesses as well as communities, and then also to bring the technologies together. We particularly concentrate on gasification, but we also have some sewage treatment and other technologies.
So you focus on making sewage treatment happen and technology?
Yes.
Okay. What's your background?
I'm a land economist by training. There is no exact equivalent in Canada, but it's essentially an economist who deals with very complicated business cases. And I've been working for about 25 years in the private sector with government, and then for a short time within government dealing with a project that saved about $7 billion.
Okay. I'm just going to start off with a number, and I'm not sure if I heard the number from you on the radio or perhaps someone else, but the number was that this project isn't costing $780 million. This project is costing $2.3 billion. That's the CRD plan, and opposed to that is a project that could cost possibly nothing. So maybe you can explain that.
A little bit of a correction. I think 2.3 is what the right plan have calculated.
For the cost of the CRD plan.
That's right. And let me explain what that is. Basically, the $784 million is really the capital cost of building it. But since CRD taxpayers are entirely responsible for operating it, you have to look at the operating costs over the life of the project. That's called life cycle costing. And you really have to total those up. I teach that across Canada. For Canada Green Building Council, and so when you do that correctly, it's 3.2 billion, not 2.3. 3.2, sorry, it went up another 5 minutes, it'll go up further. And so the issue is that you count that way because sometimes you can have a greater capital cost, but it has an offsetting lower operating costs. So what I'm referring to is that if you optimize the systems and optimize the technologies, you can both reduce the capital cost, but also because some of those systems, the resource recovery generates revenues, the revenues can cover the costs of CRD taxpayer in the long term. And so that's where you go from $784 million in capital cost down to optimized, maybe $250 million in capital cost, and then actually eliminating the long-term cost for the CRD taxpayer.
So again, 3.2 billion on one side and almost nothing on the other side.
Yeah.
And yet it's this $3.2 billion project that seems to keep moving ahead. Hopefully am I wrong?
Well, it's sort of taken a left fork. What happened with McLaughlin is that the community resoundingly said no to McLaughlin. And I think it was this historic 99.7% of all of the people that spoke at the 3 days of hearings said resoundingly, don't go there. And I think the Esquimalt Council said, yep, we get that. That's the $3.2 billion. Now, what's happened since then is there's been some elections. Mayor Helps has come in, and she is chair of the Sewage Committee, which technically is called the Core Area Liquid Waste Management Committee. She's also chair of the East Side Committee, because what they've done is they've split the two sides. There's the west side, which is Esquimalt, View Royal, First Nations, Colwood and Langford, and then some of the Victoria flows and questionably some of the Saanich flows. And then there's the east side, which is really Oak Bay, Victoria, and Saanich. And interestingly enough, 60% of the flows in the west side are actually from the east side, and the east side doesn't get to vote on what happens in the west side.
Okay.
So they've got some challenges.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago, just before we started filming actually, that the new plan that seems to be getting developed, much to my surprise, I didn't know there was a new plan, is potentially worse than the McLaughlin plan?
I think I'm not going to tread on the delicate quagmire of deciding, but I'll let the viewers decide.
Okay.
The plan was released, it's been undertaken by a group called Urban Systems, directed I think by staff and the politicians. And what they've concluded with is a plan which has Rock Bay as its centerpiece. And what that means is that they're moving towards analyzing 3 models, and they've restricted and reduced the number of sites they would contemplate. And Rock Bay is the centerpiece in all 3 of the scenarios they're looking at. Now, they're supposed to be looking at a centralized plant, a decentralized plant, and one other. However, there are no mains at Rock Bay. And so,
what does that mean?
Mains? Well, a mains is a 2-meter wide pipe that they're going to have to take in the centralized model, and most of the other models as well. You're going to have to take from Clover Point to Rock Bay.
So you mean the sewage doesn't go to Rock Bay, it
doesn't
goes
go
to
there.
Clover Point.
So they've got to move it there.
So it's got to be moved, and so you mentioned a pipe running from Clover Point. So under the plan that seems to be in first place right now, it's going to mean running a pipe from Clover Point
down Dallas Road, and everybody will be scrambling for maps, up Cook Street, through Cook Street Village, carries on along Cook Street. It's going to cross Fort, it's going to cross Pandora, it's going to cross Johnston. It'll cross virtually every major arterial road in central Victoria. Then it's going to turn sharp left to head towards Rock Bay, probably through a residential neighborhood close to where we're filming tonight, just a few over.
Which street do you think it'll be running down?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Their plans are a little vague.
Okay.
Then it's going to cross Quadra, Blanchard, Douglas, and Government to get to Rock Bay. After it's gone there, according to their plans, it's going to come all the way back. So they will be digging a hole for essentially 2 pipes, sewage out and treated water back.
Now, we keep getting told this is a democratic, people-oriented process, and I've tried to be involved, but this is the first I've heard that any things were sort of happening this quickly.
There's been a few choice emails in the background for the people who are watching this, including the right plan, and I think I think once it's realized what this implies, there will be some justifiable nervousness, just as there was with the proposal to go 18 kilometers from Esquimalt waterfront all the way to Heartland landfill and back.
Now, what do you recommend we should be doing at this point in time?
If you do the math properly, you quickly realize that what the right plan has put forward is actually the best plan. And it's to move to tertiary disinfected and then distribute the sites.
Okay. When you say distributed, how many does that mean?
Anywhere between 5 and 10 plants, probably. It depends on some detailed math. But
would this be just for the east side?
No, you would do it for both sides.
Okay, so what you've just mentioned before was that they seem to be moving towards, again, a single site?
No, you would never do that. They have done that.
They have.
Yeah.
And you're saying 5 to 10 sites, and I guess the sites would be located very close to the mains, so you don't have to run pipes. And is that doable?
Yes, it's doable. Yes, there are sites. Many of the sites that are desirable have not been included in their plan, and this is the challenge. The other thing is that they're hesitant because they feel that there's extra cost involved in going to tertiary, and there is. It's about 30% more expensive. However, it has some significant advantages. It avoids all of the major pipes and so on, and when they were doing the original McLaughlin plan, that was $120 million of extra cost. So it avoids that because you can discharge locally with distributed plants that are small enough to be able to recharge the creeks, recharge the aquifers, reuse the water and so on, or even discharge straight into the sea. And the example for that is at Dockside Green, where they actually discharge straight into the gorge waterfront.
And they discharge clean water?
Clean water. It's near drinking quality.
Again, in terms of cost, the plan that seems to be moving ahead, the Rock Bay scenario, is going to be costly. Any numbers?
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess, but the big cost won't be in laying the pipes. The big cost will be to the community disturbance.
And the Wright plan, which I think you support, is less community disturbance?
It has considerably less community disturbance. You can largely use existing sites that are owned and zoned.
And lower cost in terms of running the system over many, many years?
If you do it correctly, yes, not only lowering the initial cost, but lowering the long-term operating costs as well.
Okay, so why aren't we doing that?
Not a question for me. I think that's a question for the politicians.
Okay. Which politicians should we be asking?
Well, I think Mayor Helps is trying to do something really excellent, but I think a starting point would be to ask her and Mayor Desjardins.
And what should we ask them?
I would ask them the questions you've asked me and try and find out whether or not they have indeed moved in the correct direction and look at the justifications as to why. They don't have a business case, so I would ask that question as well.
And a business case means just the plan that makes sense.
You're going to quickly count whether a 2-meter pipe through Cook Street Village makes a lot of sense.
Okay, and once again, I was at the meetings when locations were discussed and eliminated, but the table I was at, which was looking at some very important parts of the city, we never eliminated any sites really. People just said, well, these look good based on the fact we don't know anything about technologies or anything else. We didn't eliminate sites, but you're saying sites have been eliminated.
My background is in real estate. They are going to eliminate sites really because of the federal requirements, but in reality they could do this a lot more simply than they're doing, that they just have not moved in that direction. They lack the experience.
Chris Corr, thank you very much for what seems to be a little bit of bad news. I hope we can straighten this out, folks. This is a big one. Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.